Hey, this is Miss Francis. Well, today we're just going to talk a few minutes on physical versus chemical changes. Now, we've already talked about physical and chemical properties, which are something that you can look at the substance and see how to describe it. But now we're going to look at when you do something to a substance, if it is a physical or a chemical change occurring. Well, physical changes occur when you do something that only affects the physical properties of a substance. So this could be a phase change, it could change the size or shape of the substance. Essentially, the substance is still the same before and after. It doesn't change its identity. So common verbs that we use for physical changes are tearing, breaking, freezing, melting, condensing, boiling, subliming, deposition, vaporizing, evaporating, cutting, separating, and mixing. Even dissolving is just a physical change. So those are some of the keywords. As you know, a phase change is a physical change, not a chemical change, because even though it looks like it's a different substance, its chemical makeup is still the same. So here's a couple examples here. So we have a popsicle right here, and when the popsicle melts, it's still a popsicle, but melting just changes the state of matter of a substance. And if you cut a girl's hair, well then you're just cutting it and it's still hair. And crushing a can, it's still the can. And even gold, if you melt gold and you put it, you transfer it from the gold rock to the gold ring, you really are, it's just a physical change. It's still gold. It just looks a little bit different. It's just in a different state. Now, chemical changes are the opposite of that. A new substance is created. So, in other words, molecules had to be broken and reformed, so there's all this stuff happening on the chemical level when you think of the atoms and molecules breaking apart to make new bonds and new substances. So chemical changes will produce a new substance. And there are signs of a chemical change that are pretty obvious to us to note that a chemical change actually occurred because we did something to it. So if the object changes color, that's usually a sign of a chemical change. If gas is produced, meaning we're going to see some bubbles, that's a sure sign of a chemical change. If it starts to smell different, even if something gets moldy, that's a chemical change that occurred. You can't get that back. And if a heat is produced, now don't let this confuse you. It is not saying that heat is being used like in a phase change. It's saying heat is produced, meaning you put two things together that are room temperature and they become hot after their reaction. Not because you added heat. Heat was produced. So don't let that confuse you. That's a common misconception. So some chemical changes, when we talk about those, the verbs that we are going to use are burning, cooking, oxidizing, which is rusting, exploding, spoiling. Those are the kinds of words that we use when we talk about chemical changes. So here in my pictures we have the tree leaves. They turn different pigments in different times of the year. And so that's a sign of a chemical reaction that took place. This here is like an Alka-Seltzer tablet that's getting dissolved in water. The citric acid and the water and the baking soda are producing those bubbles, the carbon dioxide bubbles, which is producing a gas, which is a sign of a chemical change. And then we have the shiny orange and brown copper. The Statue of Liberty has reacted with carbon dioxide, and it's formed the green copper compounds that you see. And then this is my favorite dessert, and it's creme brulee. And you can tell that when you put the sugar on top and you burn it, well, it becomes a new substance, but you've actually burned it, and it's changed color, and it's a new substance. You can't undo that. So that's what that is. All right, let's do just a few examples, and then we'll be done. So using a mortar and pestle, Birdley grinds up a substance into a fine powder. Is that a chemical or a physical change? Well, that is a physical change because it is still the substance. It's not a new substance. Anthony watches solid carbon dioxide change into gaseous form. What do you think? Well, that is just a physical change because it's just a phase change. An electric current causes water to be transformed into hydrogen and oxygen gas. Well, just because it's talking about chemicals doesn't mean it's a chemical change, but it is a chemical change because a new substance is formed. Norman mixes flour, water, and sugar to make cookie dough. Well, the mixing part is just a physical change. You can undo those. You can separate them with quite a process, but you can. If you were to put it in the oven to make the cookies, then that would be a chemical change. And the last one, adding iodine to cornstarch produces a new blue substance. That's definitely a chemical change. Alright, well I hope you learned the difference between physical and chemical changes. Physical changes is still the same substance. Chemical changes is a new substance, and it can be seen by odor, new color, gas, or a new heat produced. Alright, thank you so much.